There you go, Eric. That intro should give you flashbacks of your visit to Netherlands. About 2 months ago?
Not the visit to the Netherlands. I don't know. Maybe the podcast. You mean?
No. Where were you? You went to some like weekend rave.
DEFCON 1. Yeah.
Yeah. DEFCON 1. Populate itself for those of us who are old and cool. So yeah, big beats, man. I figured you weren't dancing. I saw you weren't dancing. I was.
It's 9 a.m. on a Friday.
It's never the wrong time to dance. Also, you're still awake from last night's party, right?
Yeah, right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Teams Fridays. I am Michael Tressler. I'm a senior solutions consultant at Jabra, and I focus on Microsoft Teams, specifically Teams devices. And Eric Marcy, who are you?
I'm Eric Marcy, as Michael said. I'll repeat my name again. I'm the founder and principal solutions architect at Voltex Solutions, and I'm also a Microsoft MVP.
And an MVP in modern work, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
What do you do to begin? What have you done to become an MVP and to maintain? What are your activities? Where do we find you?
So the biggest one being the Microsoft Teams user group. I'm on the board of directors there, and I also run 2 chapters of the Teams user group.
Which ones? Cleveland and Columbus?
Yes, sir. Cleveland,
Ohio.
Columbus. Yep. So if you're in Ohio, feel free to come out and say hi and learn what's new in Teams and whatever our second presentation is each quarter. So would love.
What is our second presentation this time? Isn't it like security or something?
Yeah, it's security in Microsoft 365.
Yeah, we haven't scheduled ours in the Tampa Bay area yet because we don't have a space because Microsoft lovingly closed all their offices. So we had the last one at the bar at the German American Society, which worked out fine because I'm the technical director there. We've got 6 HD TVs, Rokus and Fire TVs and AirPlays, and we can stream everything, overhead speakers. It's not like a big super sports bar, but it's not bad for a place that has little to no budget. We've done a lot there, and now we're looking at doing it in the City of Largo Public Library. So we're trying to get finalization of that so that we can find a permanent home. There's nothing wrong with the German American Society, but technically I was supposed to have paid for reserving the space and having a meeting.
Yep.
So I kind of squatted. A couple people came by. Why are there 10, 15 people here on a Tuesday afternoon? I'm like, no one was supposed to come in and notice. So anyway, teamsug.com if you're if in the United States. If not, there are plenty of other good user groups around the globe. And off we go. Anything else we need to know about you?
Not really.
You
can tell how awake I am today.
What time do you usually wake up? I mean, it's 9:18 a.m. Eastern time.
9 o'clock usually.
Usually wake up at 9. This week I've been waking up at like 9 or 9:30. I made a point to go to bed early last night. Fun fact, and I'm not going to throw the vendor under the bus. Microsoft Teams Rooms reboots at 2:30-ish every morning. At 3:20 a.m., one of my MTRs started beeping very loudly and woke me up. So thank you for that. That wake up at 3:20 a.m. I didn't need that. Tampa meetup, yes, teamsug.com. And hopefully in the library. If not, we'll be at a bar. Again, we'll be squatting at a bar.
It's actually not a bad idea, especially with all the Microsoft offices closing. Here in Ohio, thankfully, when I launched the Columbus user group, I was actually across the hall in the Veeam office because the Microsoft office had a lot of COVID restrictions still. Well, that Microsoft office got shut down. So it was like, hey, great, we're already in the Veeam office. Awesome.
I held it once before at a bar when I was in Nashville with the Nashville Teams Users Group. The Microsoft office was renovating. And so the Teams Users Group happens 4 times a year. So you got 3, you can go like up 3 to 5 months between meetings, depending on how things fall. And so they were renovating. So I, air quotes, rented the private room at, what's the name of the bar chain? Bar Louie. And the private room, and they're like, it's a Tuesday night. You can have the room for free. Just buy some drinks and snacks. I'm like, we will buy snacks. The Teams UG doesn't buy drinks, but it was in the evening, so some people bought on their own. So they had a TV we were able to connect to, do our PowerPoint presentations and all that. So it ended up being decent considering it was in a full-on bar because we got the private room. All right. Are you ready to get into the content of what's new in calling meetings and devices? So if you don't know, and Martin, by the way, is at a thing with his kids today. He may or may not join mobily. Martin at Microsoft is a center of excellence, and that is a partner-facing group. And their role, among many other things, is to create materials for partners to assist in the sales of whatever their technology is. Martin is Teams devices, Teams rooms primarily. So every month he puts out what's new in calling meetings and devices, and you can get there at aka.ms/what's new CMD. I could probably make a thing real quick. Do I have a banner already? Let me put it on the screen. Create a banner.
I was going to say, I think isn't that also case sensitive as well?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But let me make sure I put that in correctly. Copy, paste. Yep. There we go. So that's the presentation we're going to go through and talk about what's new in calling meetings and devices. So I am going to share my screen and share tab audio. This will be interesting if the audio works. And I want to share this screen. There we go.
Awesome.
Copilot. Did you watch Selling Teams Rooms, or were you busy like brushing your teeth and making yourself pretty for the show?
I woke up at 8:59, so no.
Woke up at 8:59. Perfect.
It's 9:21 right now. So
no. So we talked Copilot in the previous show, Selling Teams Rooms. So let's talk a little more Copilot. Copilot and Teams Phone. You're like, what? I'm making a telephone call. Like, seriously, yep. Copilot. Like, what's up? Not creepy, but it's listening into the live phone call and taking notes is what's happening. And so I am a notorious not note taker. I don't take notes in meetings. If there's something important, if there's an action item or something, I'll write something down. But I'm not the person to go to. Hey, Mike, that meeting we had 3 weeks ago. Do you remember what happened? I have to remember what happened. I don't go, oh, let me check my OneNote, I'm just like, oh yeah, I scribbled something down or I sent an email. So for people like me, this is awesome if the system automatically takes the notes for me. And then if somebody asks, I can go, let me ask Copilot. So that's what happens here. Then there's a video on the next slide, which I don't know if the audio is going to come through. I'm on the next slide now. How does PowerPoint work? There we go. So let me hit play, and I don't know if you're going to hit the audio. If not, we can talk to.
Imagine I'm a salesperson on the phone.
Hear it a little off your mic.
Those questions.
Do you hear it?
Hear it off your mic, but very
off my mic, but very faint. All right. Yeah, this could be like in Teams. My default speaker and microphone don't match the default speaker and microphone that I'm using right now. So how do I change that really quickly? Speaking sounds well, the sound output does. It is a match. We'll see. If not, we'll just talk over it.
About the warranty for products they purchased. During the call, Copilot helps me say.
You know what? I'm just going to talk over it. So right now, this person's on a phone call with a customer about a warranty thing. And so right there, the key topics is, and some of the stuff is like technical support question. Megan has a problem with the network settings on one of the devices. So it's already taking notes throughout this call. And then you see they copied the notes, the key topics, and now they're going to bring in a consultative transfer to Daniela and then share with Daniela what has already discussed, whatever's happened on the call. So it's an easier way to transfer the information from one support person as you escalate or whatever. So you go, here's a quick summary of her questions so that the next person knows what happened. So the notes were taken automatically by Copilot. You can copy and paste them, do your thing, move them along. And so not a bad feature when you start thinking about telephone calls, as long as you can handle over the creepy part that someone is joining, someone's listening in on your call.
And it's actually kind of funny. There was actually a customer of mine that was using this Read AI meeting bot that would automatically join the meeting. So like 5 minutes before the meeting started, is to join this meeting and acting as a user. And it's like listening to exactly everything you say. And the moment you get done with the meeting, it sends an email that says, here's an actual summary of everything that was discussed in the meeting. It is the creepiest thing.
Yeah, but I'm all for it.
Yeah, it will be nice because especially when do we talk about this? You have an entire history then of notes, not just from your meetings, but you also have this now from your phone calls as well. So
Teams chat, same basic thing. So here within Jabra, we have the group of like my team, the 5 or 6 of us. And it's busy. Often we talk about work. Like I did today, like, hey, anybody know a fix for why my MTR beeps super loudly at 3 a.m.? I just need to turn that feature off. I don't need it because I'm not in IT department. I'm not an AV where you walk down the hallway, you hear the beep, and it's like, oh, something's wrong in this room. Or somebody can say, hey, there's loud beeping in our conference room and we can't join the meeting. So probably a useful feature. So I asked on the chat, but we also then talk about life, the universe, and everything as well. So it'd be nice then what this does. I don't know if this video plays, what all it's going to show. But what it does, it goes through your chats and summarizes what's happened in, let's say, the last 24 hours. So it would pull out and say, hey, Eric recommended that Michael disable this feature on his MTR. Also, we're apparently all drinking whiskey tonight. So it'll summarize all those things. So and I often wonder, my boss, who is busy doing boss things and he's in meetings all the time, he occasionally chimes in on these chats. And it's like, it'd be nice if he had a summary, because he's not like, unlike us, he's not like living in Teams. He's living in Teams phone and meetings and those sort of things. If the AI is trying to communicate to me through beeps. So it'd be good for my boss to be able to get some summaries of what the hell is people are talking about.
The things that I'm going to be curious on when Copilot does get released is how that works with like compliance with inside of Office 365. Like, is everything that it's writing down, is it like, stored in an area where it's going to be part of like a e-discovery type case? So I'm kind of curious, like, what's going to happen from that side of the feature. So
yeah, so are you thinking like have Copilot summarize the e-discovery? Because you'll wonder sometimes, you hear these law cases, there were 1 million documents. No human beings are reading those 1 million documents. They're doing text search. They're loading them up on Control F. Indictment, Control F, whatever term you're searching for.
I think
could.
I'm meaning more or less the data that it's gathering and kind of storing as text data. It's kind of like, there's some organizations that, like, we have to turn voicemail off as an example because they don't want that, that compliance issue of that data being stored in their email for those customers. So kind of curious what that's going to look like.
Yep. It'll be fun.
We'll see what happens.
All this is early access. Even a bunch of the people at Microsoft, they don't have Copilot access yet. So it's getting there. It's some of it's starting to bleed out, like in Edge. There's already some of that. Well, not Copilot, but ChatGPT stuff. So let's see. We saw that video. What's next? Shared calling. So this is interesting. You probably do a little more in the calling thing. Are you familiar with this one? I haven't done anything with it. So Eric, what is shared calling?
So shared calling is for Microsoft calling plans, and the kind of what shared calling brings to the table is the ability to have one phone number assigned to multiple people. So typically anything Microsoft Teams, whether your calling plans, Operator Connect, or even direct routing, the kind of general consensus has been you need to have a phone number assigned to each individual user, or if you're using direct routing, a phone number with an extension. Shared calling lets you have one phone number assigned for multiple users with one calling plan license. So, typically, if you think of a calling plan license, if we're just looking at a standard domestic US calling plan, that's $12 a user a month. If you've got these users that maybe they're using, calling here and there, that can add up, to a lot of cost in your monthly bill versus just maybe buying one for people that aren't actually using their phone all that much. Now, the way that this works is that you assign a phone number to a resource account in Microsoft Teams. After you assign that phone number and you license it for a Teams phone resource account, you assign the calling plan license to that account. Then once you have that assigned, you come in to create a shared calling policy that you assign to multiple users. And one of the bits of configuration here that you can kind of see a little bit at the bottom is the emergency callback number. Now, the reason why this is important is the moment that you call 911 or 999 or 112, depending on what country you're in, if you're all dialing out 911 from the same exact phone number, when they come back in, it's going to be like, who does this go to? So the option that you get is, procuring effectively a list of DIDs that you're going to make available for emergency callbacks. So when Teams detects that you make a 911 call to emergency services. It's going to change the from number to, instead of being the shared calling number, to be the calling number that you define as part of the pool. So temporarily, it's kind of like an ELIN if you work with SBCs today. It's kind of like an ELIN database where it's kind of picking a number from a pool and using that to make the 911 call. So then that way, if they call you back, Microsoft Teams automatically knows that this phone number routes to this specific individual.
So one number you'd put in there like your main, the main switchboard number, or even my mobile number if I'm remote, or how?
You would not put your mobile number in there. This would just be part of the numbers that you have procured as part of your tenant.
All right. So one of your permanent company phone numbers, not personal.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, the other nice thing about this is that the resource account that you're using to assign the phone number to the actual shared calling policy, you can assign that to your auto attendant or call queue as well. So when they call back in, you can say, here's the auto attendant, and then you have a dial by name directory on that where you can actually reach the individuals. That single phone number.
That was going to be my next question. If somebody calls that number, does the phone ring on 10,000 people? And they're like, yeah, I'm looking for Bob. I'm like, who's Bob? I know 7 Bobs. Like, which?
Just DDoSing all these Teams notifications. Hey, we got a phone call, everybody.
10,000 people handing out the number. And if everybody gets just one phone call a day, that's 10,000 phone calls in a day.
Yep. Now, what I will be curious on is what will happen if this will expand beyond just calling plans, because today, again, this is just calling plans that this feature will be built for. But it would be nice to kind of see this come to direct routing as an example, or even Operator Connect, because then we can kind of really start looking at getting rid of that extension mindset that we kind of brought over from Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams. Because again, you're using that pool of one numbers, and you can kind of make things a little bit more modern. So I'll be curious to see if this feature ever expands beyond that.
And the minutes for placing a phone call, if you use Microsoft as your telephone company, you need only buy one license. You don't have a license every one of these
anything
10,000
calling
people?
plans is inbound is 100% free. So inbound minutes you pay nothing for. Outbound minutes, you are still limited by whatever the license is at the top of the resource account. So by standard default in the US, that's 3,000 domestic minutes. And if you have international and domestic, it's 3,000 domestic and 600 international. If you exceed that, it'll kind of use all the calling plan licenses in the entire tenant to kind of pull that together. So it's not just, you're limited to that one license. It's going to use the entire tenant pool. But if the tenant pool goes away, then you're failing back to communication credits. They also announced, as part of, kind of calling plans becoming more, having more features to it, pay as you go to the US coming soon. So that means is that you can assign a calling plan license to, your users. You can give them a phone number. But the other big thing that comes with this is that when you assign that license, they get unlimited inbound minutes, but they get no outbound minutes. So then the pay as you go is using your communication credits. So even then, that's another way to potentially save money. And that's typically what you see, with your standard direct routing, Operator Connect carriers. You're paying per minute and per usage. So it's kind of bringing more competition to the market from Microsoft side.
And again, so you only need one calling license to that resource account, not 10,000 at
one calling license. However, I will mention every user that is part of the shared calling policy will still need a Teams Phone standard license.
Correct. You still need the virtual phone license piece.
Well, but you need the resource account license for the resource account. But each user that is part of that needs that Teams Phone standard license that's included with E5 or an add-on to E3, E1, or whatever license group that you're using, depending on your tenant.
All right. I think this next slide here kind of walks through showing how to set this up. So let's see what happens here.
In the Teams Admin Center, I simply create a custom shared calling policy. Then I can assign a resource account and phone number to make a custom policy. And finally, I assign users to this policy. Just like that, all of these users are enabled to place and receive ESK calls with a shared phone number. The experience for these users is exactly the same as if they had their own personal phone number.
I mean, it's pretty cool because it's always been a challenge of how do you get DID numbers to people.
Yep.
Or not DID. How do you get assigned phone numbers to people without having to buy a bunch of DIDs and pay $1 per number or whatever? So pretty cool. India, we'll just talk to this quickly because
this is actually a big issue, even with the a lot of the companies that I work with, and I'm actually really excited to see Operator Connect launching there.
India's got, if you don't know, they've got weird phone laws.
Yes,
so.
there's certifications that the government has to. Yeah, there's certifications that the government normally has to do to make sure that you're using location-based routing. So there's no toll bypass. There's a lot of weird things around 911. You have to use local PRIs so that stuff, or PRIs or local SIP trunks, so that things don't leave India. So this kind of simplifies those deployments where you can say, hey, here's Operator Connect.
Yep. So it's good to see, but let's move on to Teams Phone mobile availability. So this is expanded. This basically lets your work Teams number be the actual phone number on your mobile phone. So you can just use the local dialer on your phone. You don't have to go to the Teams app. And when you use a local dialer, you're making receiving calls with the native telephone app on your mobile phone using your Teams phone number. So it's a pretty cool feature.
Mm-hmm.
Right, nothing to add. All right.
Yep, nothing to add.
Collaborative notes, loop component. So I've seen this pop up. Basically, as you take notes within Teams meetings, it ends up in a loop component, which you can then share all over the place. So loop is kind of a back-end thing that is a system-based. I don't want to define loop. It's a modern back-end tool that lets the same data be seen in 18 different places. So if you view it in Outlook, it's the same thing as if you view it in Teams, as if you view it in, paste it into a Word document.
Microsoft To Do, all those things.
Yep. So that is, so loopiness. We're getting loopy in Teams.
Curious how that's going to play into Copilot. I'm very curious.
Is this a video? Let's go look at loopy notes.
My teammates can edit this in real time whenever they want, and it will always be up to date. So I'm going to add a couple topics to this meeting agenda. First, we need to actually do brainstorming since it's the topic of the meeting, but we also should discuss budget as well. One time in my meeting, the agenda automatically pops up on the right pane, and it's the same loop component that we use to capture and share our notes. You can see the team has already added additional agenda items, and it's going to be really easy to also capture all those meeting notes and follow-up tasks. Hey team, let's get started on our brainstorming session. Our first topic is to get the ideas flowing using whiteboard.
That's always a fun meeting to start. Let's start brainstorming. Eric, let's brainstorm.
Teams phone. There's my brainstorm idea.
I don't think you feel the energy. It's still too early in the morning for a good brainstorm. All right, we already saw that part. Max Hub. Are you familiar? Have you ever heard of Max Hub before?
I have not actually.
A week ago.
I have not actually.
Yep. So Max Hub is a company. Because I'm not familiar with them, but I will be over the next few months. Max Hub is a company that apparently puts out very affordable Windows-based devices, and so the goal here from the Microsoft Devices Group is that Teams rooms on Windows the price can come down and compete with Teams rooms on Android. So not that they're trying to necessarily take away business from the Android side, but that it gives customers more options if they're price conscious, that they'd like to be Windows, but there's a premium. They'd like to be able to have some less expensive Windows options. So that's Max Hub.
And also, like as another example, as part of that is, Windows typically gets the features first. Not always, but Windows typically does get the features first, and so it does, bring that price point down to, for people that may want that.
Yep, I'm pretty sure all the Copilot-y stuff is going to be Windows first. Whatever they put in. They keep mentioning Copilot for Windows and Teams runs Windows, and I'm like, I think it's going to be a back-end stuff, not so much like hit the button on the Teams Rooms console, bring up Copilot and ask it something, maybe, because Cortana's gone away. So
but it might also take 9 months for that button to be added to an Android console.
Yep. Webinars. So this is something within Jabra we've been messing around with. Josh Blaylock's.
Sorry, I can't answer that one.
Oh, hey, I said the C word and she woke up. Anyway, Josh Blaylock's Technically Speaking, we're doing this. I think this is the first time at Jabra we're really giving Teams webinars a run. And so new feature coming to webinars is basically just a Teams meeting, but with a whole front end for end user registration, management, all that sort of thing. So apparently now you can customize the automated emails that gets sent and received. So you can put your own company logos and move some things around, tailored banner and logo, and update the body of emails. So good things as it, just continues to become more and more powerful as a a meeting management platform.
It's kind of nice that you're able to add like extra customizations, not just static text. Like if you change the event name, it automatically updates this.
Yeah.
So it's not just, limited to static data.
Welcome to your webinar. We're excited to invite you to our webinar. Now you can say like, thank you for joining Technically Speaking. We're excited, blah, blah, blah. So customization is always good. Zoom in and zoom out when viewing the screen share. I don't know if I can zoom in so much on here. Do I have a zoomy button? Here we go. We're looking right here. Here's the plus and minus buttons have been added if you haven't noticed. And it works on Teams desktop. You'll see these plus and minus buttons down here. How do we gotta zoom in?
And then also you have kind of the keyboard shortcuts of Control Plus or Command Plus if you're on a Mac.
Does it also work with a control and wheel on the mouse?
I don't know if it does or not.
I don't know if I've tried that or not. Fun trivia is that on Teams Room's Android with touchscreens, you've been able to do this for a long time. Using two fingers, you can pinch and zoom in and out on things, which you've been able to do on Teams Rooms on Android, which most people didn't know. I think that also applies to the Teams displays. You can zoom in and out by doing that. So it's good to see when someone like Sharat Abraham shares a screen and ends up being tiny. You can zoom in and see what he's actually presenting. I'm calling out Sharat. He's a coworker, and we need to test why his screen sharing is a little weird. The participant shuffle. This is the hot new dance that's coming to the juke joints in your neighborhood. This is one of those things that I thought was always there. Like create a breakout room and just randomly assign people to a different room. Okay, shuffle, not random, but what's the difference? So that like if you have 3 breakout rooms, 9 people, 3 people get thrown into each room randomly. I get that there's times you want to say, oh, we want this group of people together, this group of people together, and you can pre-assign that or do it on the fly. But I would have thought shuffle would have been here a long time ago.
Yep.
Thanks for that key insight. He's not the best color man in baseball for nothing.
Yep.
Hey, Eric, tell me about your experience with VDI in Teams.
VDI plus E911 is usually not good. So VDI again is where the Teams client is hosted on a Citrix Zen app or a remote desktop type solution. We were trying to utilize the full Teams features, and typically there's a lot of issues that come up with that. Especially if you're running in a bandwidth limited area, you'll run issues with audio clarity because again you're sending your audio to a computer in a data center, and that computer's got to go to then back out to the internet. So it's kind of you're back and forth with different things. From an E911 perspective, there is no dynamic 911. You have to still statically assign your location if you are in VDI. But the features that they're talking about here is that they're expanding, the feature set that they have available in VDI, such as the React button in the toolbar, and a few other things with coming soon to VDI. So
yeah, I get that VDI has challenges for Microsoft and everyone. I mean, there's a lot of advantages. I'm not trying to rip VDI or people are using it. It's a perfectly valid solution in many situations. Just weird that reactions took that long to get there. I could see media type stuff. Like, hey, because we have to do media, essentially air quotes, media bypass and different paths to optimize media. But I could see some of the, in meeting controls coming late, but really hitting a thumbs up is just now coming. All right. Yep. So, hey, if you're a VDI user, you can have like thumbs up and clap.
I'd love to see like a feature expansion on it, maybe like a little agent you can deploy to your remote users that maybe gathers network info, like for E911, and sends it to the VDI infrastructure. That's just a very niche use case, I guess. But it is interesting that certain features do come at a later time to VDI versus just being kind of generally available since it's pretty much the same client.
I mean, it's almost like government community cloud where everything comes a little later because it needs additional testing and vetting and certification and things. That
Yep.
it's like, but VDI doesn't mean whatever.
Yep.
Anyway, VDI people, you can now clap and applause through things. Teams calendar enhancements. I looked today to see if I have this. I couldn't find this agenda view in my client.
I don't
So
have it
it's
either.
coming. Have you even looked, or do you?
Yeah. Oh, actually, wait. No,
You
I
have
do
it?
have it. Ooh, I do
Oh, you
have
do
it.
have it. Good for
Oh,
you.
I do have it. Yeah,
Are
it's
you in
the
an early ring? I'm on
yeah,
a production ring.
yeah. I'm in an early ring. So
Okay, so then you've got it in your early ring. But
yep.
yeah, it's just
I won't talk
a
more about
different view.
it.
Huh?
I said I won't talk more about it, NDA for that part.
Well, it's not under NDA. We're talking about it here.
Yeah,
You don't
right?
have to show a screenshot or anything you've seen other than the screenshot, but it's not under NDA if it's in the slide deck.
Yep.
But what you saw, basically, like up here, there's a button to click between the different views. Is that essentially what happens? That's where I looked in my client if I had a little button right here, and I didn't. So
I am actually excited for this feature because it kind of brings that calendar that you have on the Teams mobile app, where it just shows you a quick agenda. Here's all your meetings for today, and it kind of just gives you those quick join links. So it's kind of bringing that to Windows as an option. The bottom feature, the drag and drop, that is the really nice one.
that one, it looks like I do have.
Okay. Yeah, that one is a feature that I have been wanting for a long time because I primarily use Microsoft Teams as my go-to calendar. I rarely actually touch Outlook for calendar unless I'm making some type of advanced adjustment. But it is super nice just being able to click and drag a meeting around, or expand it to reschedule it, change the period in which the time that the meeting is going to be for. So if it's for like an hour, you can extend it to 2 hours. It's really nice having that functionality.
I cannot wait, and it cannot happen fast enough for this thing to fully replace the Outlook calendar, because Outlook is a trash program written by fine people who have no idea what they're doing. They're not qualified to do their job. They need to be redeployed within Microsoft somewhere to the level of skill that they have, because running a mail and calendaring application is clearly outside their skill set, and it's been trashed for 5 years. All right, that said, I open Outlook daily primarily just because I need that little 5-minute, 15-minute pop-up notification. If Teams ever gets that, I may not open Outlook ever again.
The next thing that I would love to see on the calendar side is if you can combine multiple tenant calendars into one, kind of like how you can in Outlook.
Yeah, hold on. In Outlook, you can't combine.
Well, you can't combine.
calendars.
You can view multiple ones. The
There
Outlook
you go.
mobile app, you can view multiple calendars.
Oh, I know. You're just preaching to my.
Oh yeah.
We'll have a whole separate discussion, because this is the one Microsoft thing that really chaps my hide, or puts a like stepping on a Lego is anytime I think about Outlook. Everything else is like, look at this beautiful spaceship we built out of Legos. And every so often you step on one and you're like, oh God, now I know why Legos you have to be careful around this thing. Outlook, the stepped on Lego of Microsoft. On-demand recording for webinars. So this is kind of again a webinar feature. So this it's just once the webinar is done, it's easier to distribute the recording to attendees if you want to distribute the recording. All right, devices.
Woohoo! Big enough.
So I work for Jabra, and we have this thing called the PanaCast 50 video bar system coming out in September. It is our Android, Teams Rooms Android, or Zoom Room on Android solution. And like all of our conference room cameras, you get a full 180-degree field of view, which we see in the picture on the right, which lets you see everyone in the conference room, not just the people who happen to be sitting at these 3 seats, like most of the other cameras in the market. And that's all I'll say, because otherwise this becomes an advertising campaign for my company, and I'm trying to be a non-whatevers. Do you have anything to add, Eric? I
can say something as I'm not.
Yeah, you're not a biased, partial Jabra employee. Anything you want to add to this?
One thing that I really like about the PanaCast series of cameras, even if you're like using it on a Windows device or whatever you're using it on, is you can really have a camera right in the middle of your conference room and have a table right up against the wall. And if somebody's sitting to the left or right of that camera, kind of like you see in that picture there, you can see them. they're brought into that Teams meeting. You don't have to sit back far away and, oh, is the camera able to see us? Is it able to zoom out wide enough and actually be able to see us? And kind of it eliminates that dead zone in a way that you typically have with most conferencing solutions.
So look for that coming in September. Also, newly certified devices, Yamaha. I know them for their sound bars in the Teams Rooms world. They're now adding cameras, so it's an all-in-one sound bar from Yamaha. So it's nice to see that Yamaha continues to invest in new products for the Teams Rooms environment. Have you used any of the Yamaha stuff?
I've not, but I do remember them. I think it was like a speaker and mic solution that they had back in the old Skype Room Systems V2 days. It was kind of like a centralized speaker and stuff. So that was the kind of last time I heard of Yamaha.
Yep.
With
were at definitely Comms Verse. I always get the V verses and the V-necks confused. They're definitely Comms Verse. The one in London, they were there.
Yep. There you go.
Spoke to them briefly. And then Lenovo, the ThinkSmart 1 is the first in the industry to be an all-in-one Teams Rooms Windows. So there's no separate PC like in every other Teams Rooms Windows. It's built into this bar. Also conveniently has the time of day. And then they also have their first IP-based controller. So instead of having to go USB, you can now use structured cabling to get just you put the console. Really, you're not limited by the distance of the USB cable. You can put it anywhere.
Yep. I kind of like the looks of that speaker bar as well, where it's got like the time on it. I think that is kind of a cool little touch. So
yeah, everybody has like cute ideas, like, hey, we need, can you put like error codes? Can you do whatever? And they're like, yeah, we just put the clock on.
Can we put the red ring of death from the 360 on it?
Eric, you'll be proud of me. I turned on my Xbox One for the first time in like 9 months yesterday and played one game and almost set a personal high score.
Awesome.
Gyrus, how much I love thee. Here it is. This is audio codes. Sorry, not the Lenovo. Audio codes. So audio codes has their new controller or console for Teams Rooms on Android. And I think one of the interesting things in here is let me do a little zoom in here, is that they kind of have these buttons, like an Android phone.
Yep.
But they got these little home, back, and camera settings are easily accessible, so the buttons are always there. You don't have to bring up a menu to get to a menu to say change.
Me of the old like haptic feedback buttons you had like on even like an old Windows phone and stuff, like where the phones used to have it built in.
Windows Phone. Please give me a moment. Pour some out for the homie who's not with us anymore.
I miss Windows Phone.
I relearned how to, or I learned C#. My rusty C skills, because I'm old, so I learned C++ actually in college. I broke out some of my rusty skills and I wrote some apps on Windows Phone. I took templates, right, pre-made templates and customized for myself, but I had to write some code. Windows Phone.
And the only thing I ever did for Windows Phone app-wise was the old App Studio.
Yeah,
feature that Microsoft had where you can tie in RSS feeds from a website and it built an entire app for you.
That's more or less what I was. Well, yeah, they had just the App Studio. Yeah. But then they also had like actual code, and I found a bug in one of their code and fixed it. And myself, and I was so proud of myself.
Yep.
So I'm like, why doesn't this work? And I went through the code using my old rusty C knowledge, which became less rusty and now is super rusty because it's like 15 years ago.
Yep.
Teams Rooms on Windows 4.17. Eric, go.
So the new user interface on your Teams Rooms is now a default UI. So in case you're not familiar with that, they kind of took the Android experience that you had for Teams Rooms and ported that pretty much to Windows. And as part of that, it also brought some changes around the wallpaper, applying the wallpaper to the device. So typically before you had to do a 3840 by 1080 like custom wallpaper and pretty much design something custom to apply to the Teams Rooms on Windows device. One of the things that they're doing now with that is that they're allowing you to just take a 1920 by 1080 wallpaper and say this is the left display, this is the right display, and then a 1200 by 800 resolution wallpaper for the touch console. So you can get away from just a standard gray background, which I kind of think is funny because we're kind of taking a step back. If you've been around since like the Skype Room Systems V2 day, V2 days. Wow, I cannot talk today.
Still early.
Yeah, a little bit. It used to have like all these different, background options that you had on Teams Rooms on Windows on the touch console. And then I think it was like the .4 update or like the 4. Code base for Teams Rooms that they switched back to just a gray display that we had originally with the start of Project Rigel. So kind of we're going back and forth with it. But the nice thing is we have the customizability now today.
And by the way, the new UI is so beautiful. When you go back and you see the old
Yes.
UI on Teams Rooms, you're like, ugh. It
Yep.
wasn't bad in Teams Rooms. The Windows,
No, it wasn't.
bad, but it's just better.
Yep, better. Also, a big announcement here is that there is the rollout of Windows 11 22H2 starting to supported devices. Now, I mentioned supported devices because some of the original Skype, what used to be originally Skype room systems, so these are kind of like the Surface Pros and the Logi Smart Docks, some older devices that are pre 8th gen Intel processors are effectively going to be not supported after the end of life date for Windows 10, which I believe is like October 2025. Don't quote me on that, but some around something 2025.
As long as they keep pushing out Windows 10s, that extends the life cycle. So
correct.
They have 22H2, so that extends it 3 years.
Yeah, something. So yeah, it would be roughly October 2025, somewhere around there. Now, there's no word from Microsoft on whether or not if you have a Teams Rooms on Windows device that's running Windows 10 past that date, if it'll still continue signing in and continue working. But the best case scenario is that you should upgrade those devices if they are approaching that age where they're no longer supported by Windows 11. You also have the ability to change your together mode scene and select it for everyone from the room console itself. So, typically that had to be done from another PC joined into the Teams meeting. So you
now you can make everyone a little fish under the sea.
Yep. And then also there's a simplified device registration process for the Pro portal for Teams Rooms. So the nice thing is that agent for Teams Rooms on Windows is no longer manually having to be installed in the room. It is automatically part of the installation of the Teams Rooms app now. So the moment that you are setting up a Teams Rooms on Windows device, it is automatically being enrolled in the Pro Management Portal for Teams Rooms,
which is a huge win for the Pro Management Portal. It's well overdue. They should have done that a while ago, but I understand there's systems and you got to work your way through and testing and all that. I find it interesting you skipped the Net Promoter Score survey at the end of some meetings. Have you seen these yet? These Net Promoter Scores?
I have not, no.
Yeah, it's instead of just like, usually there's like, how was this call? 1 to 5 stars. It's like a survey of like 5 questions. And so far I have yet to answer it and I hit cancel. So I feel bad.
The reason why I skipped over is because that's exactly what I do usually. I mean, I'm in a
skip over the
if you go back to Skype for Business, it would pop up. Hey, how would you rate this call? X.
I always rate them 5 just to offset all the people who just go 3. It was fine. It worked. 3. I'm like, on the back end, we don't think 3 is great. So I always give it 5 stars unless the call was actually crap. But then it's usually because of the people I was talking to, not for the quality of the call.
Yep.
Teams Rooms on Android. Government Community Cloud High support. So good for our friends in the government who can have all of that. Smart camera controls. This is kind of a cool feature. If you have a camera that has different views, so I'll just talk about the Jabra PanaCast 50, where it has intelligent zoom and virtual director and other things. You generally have to have an app from the vendor. One way or another, you have to get to the vendor-specific settings to change that. Now, Microsoft has added, if you hit the little down arrow next to the camera, pop-up pops up, and you can then change to whatever the camera supports or whatever the vendor and Microsoft and their APIs where they meet, where those align. So pretty cool that it removes one of the uses of a vendor thing, because the less you have to go to different UIs, unless you have to train people, hey, swipe in from the left, or even on the audio codes we saw, press this button. It's a lot easier to just go, hey, no matter which room you're in, hit this and you can change the mode from intelligent zoom to the default view or whatever. So that's pretty cool. Have you played with Content Camera on Android?
I have not, no.
As best I can tell, it doesn't do anything. It doesn't have that people removal that Windows does, but I could be wrong. Just in my minimal testing. And then I think Graham Walsh mentioned, it basically just changes to a camera that's pointed at a whiteboard, but it doesn't have the magic.
It doesn't actually pull the text out.
Yeah. So I'd like somebody, so I need to learn a little more about that. Our video bar system that is still in beta doesn't have that yet, so I can't test it on there. I have drug a video Android bar out from one of our other friends in the industry, and that's that's what I saw, is that it didn't have the intelligence of people removal and turning people in transparent. So I wonder why they call that content camera then instead of second camera control, which is inside Teams Room's Android app now, where you can have two cameras in a room and switch between them. So say one pointing at the front of the room, one pointing at the back, and you can switch which one do you want, which is primary camera switching, and then default meeting layout controls. So if you would rather have a people view as a default or a front row, you can leave that as it. So every time you join a meeting, it pops into front row as opposed to manually having to switch the modes to front row.
So some other device updates around Teams desk phones. The new Teams app version has support for reverse number lookup of manually added PSTN contacts from the Teams desktop client. So if
That's
you're
pretty
adding,
hot, actually.
it is, but I will also mention Teams desktop as in T1.0. So if you're using Teams Preview, there is no custom contacts.
The Teams 2.1 preview. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
whatever you want to call it. Yep. But yeah, so if you're adding those contacts via the older Teams client, that will work. Now for RNL. The Teams display has got a recent app update in June, and that goes ahead and changes the experience based on the licenses assigned to them. So there's kind of the virtual front desk option now, where you can set a Teams display on a front desk and press a button. It brings a bunch of people via Teams call queue in the background, and they also have a few bug fixes in there. And then Teams panels also got an update that aligns its calendar experience with that of Teams rooms on Windows. So where if the reservation is scheduled to begin within 10 minutes or less, you'll no longer be able to book the room in an ad hoc fashion on the Teams panel. So,
back when Teams panels first came out, there was, I received a lot of blowback. I was at Microsoft at the time about, why do you possibly let someone reserve a room 5 minutes before another meeting? Like, who's going to have a 5-minute meeting? That's stupid. Now people are going to sit there. Their meeting goes 7 minutes. It overruns. And the answer was just like, maybe people want to reserve a room for 5 minutes. Like, that's not our problem. The technology is there. That's a you problem. That's a management and a personal politics. And people don't be dicks and reserve a room for 5 minutes and then stay in there for 15 and then not leave when the scheduled meeting comes. Apparently those people have won, because now the shortest meaning the shortest you can have is the shortest you can have is 10 minutes before another meeting. So those people who filed that complaint, apparently you were right.
Yep.
I also like the last one. When an admin changes the panel display name, you don't have to log in and out on the device. It might still take a week for that change to show up due to cache expiration, but you can set it, go on vacation with like Jimmy Vaughn for 2 weeks, come back, and it'll show the correct name now.
I call that the Microsoft Minute.
Microsoft Minute, anywhere between 1 day and 1 minute and 48 hours ish.
Yep. 48 hours even pushing. I put it out to 96 hours.
Probably. I made a whole short movie about the Microsoft Minute.
Yep. So the one I want to point out here is the enhancements to call delegation in Teams.
Oh, not the animated backgrounds? Okay.
No, I'm a calling guy. You know that. So call delegation in Microsoft Teams, if you are added in type of a boss admin relationship to where you've got a EA that maybe has a CEO, CFO, CTO that they're managing calls for, the moment that they're added as a delegate within the side of the Teams client, they're going to see a tab pop up within the calls app that goes ahead and shows you the call history for that individual. And the standard toast notification that says you have an inbound call from so and so from this person. That is still going to stay the same, but the nice thing is you can go back and you can view the call history and see if the call was answered and kind of switch between the different people that you are managing calls for. And if you have the delegated rights to make and receive calls, you'll also see a dial pad when you go to that other user, so you can make calls on behalf of that other user. And then the other part being animated backgrounds in Microsoft Teams allows you to have kind of, I don't know if it allows you to do custom ones or not, but at least the built-in ones can have like different things moving around. It's kind of like your animated backgrounds on or dynamic backgrounds on Xbox series consoles, where it's, all these things moving around the background. That they brought that to Teams. It's kind of a better scenario. Windows Dream Scene from Windows Vista, but for your meeting background.
I'm thinking YouTube videos, just have pictures of
Yeah.
the beach. But then you get into copyright, so Microsoft
Yep.
may not want to do that because. But there are other third-party camera apps that let you do that. Running towards the end, I don't know if I was going to keep this slide in, depending on how long we go, and we're at 45-ish minutes. This is a total eye chart. Decorate your space in Teams meetings. I don't even know what this is. Live training Teams cross. So this is an eye chart. It's on the screen. I'll hide our faces so you can look at it and then go back through the video recording and pause on this, and you can see it. And then we'll move on to another one, which is intelligent camera support for Teams rooms on Windows, which is something we at Jabra are interested in. But I haven't really clicked on that, so I'm not sure what specifically they're talking about. They're probably multi-stream IntelliFrame. So that's it.
I do want to mention one there actually at the bottom. If you go back here real quick.
Going back there on the bottom.
Share device license on the mobile app for Android. That is actually a really, really good feature. So typically, if warehouse type scenario, if you needed a warehouse type phone, you're usually looking at DECT devices. Now, DECT is kind of a long range, kind of generic SIP phone type standard. You also had that with your old home cordless phones, but it was again just a basic phone. That was it. The idea here is that if you have a scenario like that, or maybe even a hospital where maybe you have these shared phones that maybe a nurse or somebody is using that's not assigned to a specific user, you can effectively make them a common area phone. So it's the Teams mobile app will have an experience where it just shows like speed dials, your call history, and that's about it. You're not going to have your calendar functionality. You're not going to have your Teams functionality. I don't know if they're adding walkie-talkie to that. I don't know if they are or not, but I'm assuming they wouldn't, but for sure you're going to have your speed dials and you're going to be able to make and receive calls, just kind of like a standard common area phone will be.
Yeah, so I put that to use the other day at the German American Society in Tampa. We do not have people in the office. We're like events based. So there's we open the bar every Friday night. Tonight, swing by if you're in the area. If our air conditioner has been fixed.
It is a must for anybody in Florida. You have to have AC.
Florida in the summer. Air conditioner is supposed to be replaced today, so I haven't pulled it off the calendar for tonight. But one of the ladies, she came and said, "Hey, I'd like to answer the phone when I'm not in the office." And I'm like, "Hey, I can give you a Poly desk phone. I've got a couple. We'll install it at your house." And she goes, "No. When I'm not at home, I'm at work. I can't take this phone with me to work." But it's a small office, so she's got a lot of freedom. So I set up, so I installed the Teams app and signed in as the common area phone account. So that's something, and it works. She's getting, the 2 calls a day that we get. She's answering them on her mobile phone as if she were in the office on a, Poly dedicated common area phone. So excellent use case for my scenario.
And another even use case that I've ran into within the past 2 weeks has been I have a customer that has multiple fast food restaurants, and they have managers that kind of come in, different shifts, but they want, them to be able to answer a call. Well, they don't want to carry around an old legacy DECT phone. They're using Teams across their corporate, phone system. Right. So the store is using Teams for its phone, and then they've just got these mobile device for the GM, and then they've got, desk phones there for if, somebody else outside the GM wants to answer the call. So
yeah, we've got desk phones at the German American Society in different offices and different spaces. So if it rings or if you need to make a phone call and you don't have your mobile phone handy. But good use case for her because she doesn't need Teams. She doesn't need to sign into Teams. So we can just take the Teams app, sign it in as a common area phone, and off we go.
Yep.
Problem solved. All right, that's it, Eric. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks for the insight. As always, you're there. People can find you at Eric Marcy on X.
Yep, Eric Marcy on X, Eric Marcy on LinkedIn, ericmarcy.com for the website, and Eric Marcy on YouTube. So
there you go. So good. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Always good spending time with you. And goodbye, everyone. Let me go find the exit music, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks for Teams Fridays. Next Teams Fridays. Bye.